So you have both written a book together. It's called the L&D Leader, Principles and Practice for Delivering Business Value. I'm going to be a bit mean, Laura, and ask if you can do a 30-second summary or pitch, however you want to do it. So what's the book really about, and who's it for?
Well, this book is addressing the issue that we see many learning and development professionals are facing right now, today, which is the fact that they are often overwhelmed. They've got more to potentially contribute to business, and yet they're seeming to be more and more irrelevant. So, this is for anybody who wants to make a difference in the world of work through learning and development. So, it's for aspiring leaders. It's also a little bit of a challenge there for seasoned leaders. Our approach has been, is there elements of the past that can help us better prepare for the future? So what we've looked at is my evidence, Michelle's evidence to say, hey, how can we cut through the overwhelm and make life easier to deliver better business value? So it's a book about principles of how to navigate the world of work that we work in, the individual, unique world of each of the readers. And it includes principles for practice, which is called try, tuning in, responding, improving, and also principles of mindset, how we turn up at work, how we can be bold in our approach as well. And it's not another playbook, it's not another model, but it's a way of navigating your own organizational environment to deliver better business value.
If you could gift every L&D leader just one tool or skill that you think will most help them navigate change and uncertainty that they're facing, what would it be? And I'm going to ask both of you that question. So again, Michelle, do you want to go first with that one?
Yeah, courage and agency. You don't need to wait for someone to give you permission. There's so much you can do from where you're at right now. We often perceive external barriers, but sometimes the biggest barriers are the ones we place in front of ourselves that come from our own mindset and the way we think about ourselves, our work, our ability to create change.
Okay, great. And what about you, Laura?
Well, I'd written that down as well. Shows you how much we've prepared together, really. That professional courage and ability to let go is absolutely vital for us in the new world of work. But then what do we grab hold of? We grab hold of the idea of principles that we can work into our own models that work for ourselves. I think that's something that is it's a liberating way. When we did some research in the book, we started Googling and using AI to say, how many models are out there for L&D. When we got to 150, and a fraction of those are clearly have been made up, it was like, oh, no wonder it's so confusing. So, holding on to the principles, the core principles to guide our lives and our actions, actually is a way of simplifying and decluttering.
Yeah.
So I get the gift of decluttering, I think I would add to Michelle's courage, professional courage, and ability to let go.
Lovely. Yeah, great words. Okay, so let's dive in a little bit more then into the kind of things you've been talking about in the book. And one of the things you talked about is that you've been looking at past practice in order to see if there's anything there that can inform how we might, I guess, navigate our way through into the future. And bearing in mind lots of things are changing. Michelle, what have L&D teams been doing that you think no longer serves us well, from that research?
Yeah, there's a few things that you can observe time and again. One is this over-reliance on creating contents and course catalogues as default solutions. And there's kind of like this relationship, and I know we talk a lot about being order takers, where the business asks us for courses and content, and instead of entering a business conversation around what's the real problem, what's the real issue, we serve up the courses and the content, and we create more confusion and more overwhelm. And it's slow. In today's pace in the world of work, it takes a lot of time to create contents, to create courses. When we talk about in the book, the horizon's getting closer, change is happening more rapidly, we can't keep pace anymore. So clinging on to content and courses, when real learning happens in so many other ways, that's kind of a key example of something that no longer serves us well. And related to that is not taking the initiative, waiting for permission, or feeling like we can't have more business-focused conversations. We're not focusing on solving business problems, but rather just bringing our learning expertise and feeling like it's pointed at a request, and that makes us feel good. We're doing something rather than stepping back and really, we're going to be talking about tuning in a little bit more, but tuning in to the environment, the context, and really working with others to look at what's going to work to lift capability, if indeed learning is the right solution for something. So it makes us feel good because we're clinging to our expertise rather than being more curious, more open-minded, and exploring from a place of deeper understanding.
Which is why I guess you called out courage, right? Because you need that to break away from your comfort zone to get out of that corner that you might be in.
Absolutely.
And we've talked a little bit, or you've talked a little bit already, both of you, about the idea of navigation. And in your book, you talk about needing a new roadmap for this, we can say unknown future, but things are changing almost hourly, daily at the moment, it seems. Laura, can you paint a picture of why you think you need a kind of new roadmap at the moment, in particular, I guess?
Well, you just answered our question, Kirsty, there. It's this continual changing that we are in. And in fact, we talk less about a roadmap because that implies that someone's already been down this route and has mapped it out and said, this is the way to go. Come follow us, or follow our directions, or do what we say. What was very clear to us is that, if I looked at any one of the research reports I've written over the last 20 years, every single one, Kirsty, started off with either me or someone doing a forward saying, because we're in so much change right now, we need better ability to be able to learn, adapt, adjust, and be agile. That was 2003, we first started saying that. So the reality today is that the road in front of us, there isn't a road. And I think the metaphor that Michelle was hinting at earlier, that was so powerful for me, it was almost like my aha moment for bringing the book together, is that it's less that we're on a road. It's almost like we are in the middle of an ocean, and everywhere we look is just horizon. And we've got a sense that we want to be able to get to somewhere safe, somewhere useful for the people that we're serving, somewhere relevant, somewhere where organizations can improve performance. But how we get there, when you're just surrounded by this circle of horizon, becomes much more of a, where do I go? There isn't a roadmap. We need to be able to understand, how do we navigate to that point of delivering better business value? And the metaphor that we've used is that the Polynesian navigators. And actually, it's a renaissance that's happened over in the last 50 years based out of Hawaii, of the Hawaiian indigenous people rediscovering their ability to navigate those incredible oceans that allowed them to be able to kind of like be in habitation across the whole of Polynesia. And what they did is that they learned how to continually tune into the environment, that tuning in, what is going on in the sky, in the sea, in the swells. 5,000 observations they make every single day in order to make 500 changes in terms of their actions. Their responding is very much dependent on that. And they're constantly every day looking at the horizon. Where are we now? Constantly checking in, constantly improving. So this concept of tuning into our environment, to the business needs, individuals, is so vital to what we do, to the environment that we're in. Our ability to respond from a place of a safe canoe that gives us stability, to allow to bring other people to business value, is absolutely vital. And that doesn't mean courses. And also our ability to continue to adapt. So this kind of concepts for us is less about a new roadmap, but how to create our own pathway for today, because the pathways for tomorrow may need to be different, because we don't know what's happening in our organization tomorrow. So it's about navigating the pathways to business success versus following my roadmap to business success. And that's why that navigation metaphor for us has been, it's one, Kirsty, that just keeps on giving, and you'll see that as you read through in the book. But being those navigators is a vital aspect of learning leadership moving forward.
That makes sense. Yeah. So it's not like, finding a true north and sticking to the pathway or finding a new, even 5-year strategy, even. It's actually that, people talk about being all at sea, which means sometimes they can feel entirely lost. But what you're saying is this, yeah, you might be all at sea at the moment. It might feel like that, but there are still navigation devices and choices you can make, perhaps on a daily basis or a weekly basis that will
We
help.
are navigators. Also, that is our role. It's not our role not only for us to be able to move forward, but we bring others with us.
Hmm.
And that's what's excited us about leadership. It's not the L&D leader. It's not just for those who are responsible for setting the plan for everybody else. It's the fact that we are all have that ability to be able to navigate and help others move forward.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks for that. And obviously did a lot of research for the book, and you've got all that research that you've been doing, as professionals in your roles anyway. What were your biggest insights or findings that stood out for you, as you were researching and writing? And did you each have kind of different aha moments as you were doing the book? So I don't know who wants to go first on that one. Michelle, do you want to chip in?
Yes, I'll chip in. Laura, I'm going to go here, so be ready to respond. So when Laura invited me to write the book with her, I thought, this will be a walk in the park, because this is stuff Laura's been thinking about for 20 years. She's been researching it, she's been talking about it, she's been writing about it. So, my role in apart from being a thinking partner with Laura in how to bring some of this stuff to life, was largely to provide practical examples to apply, the evidence and insights that Laura's bringing to the table to the practical examples. I was surprised at the fact that Laura didn't present me with a fully baked bit of content, and here's what we're talking about. Here's all the key ideas. Here's all the key, practices or principles or whatever that you can use to deconstruct and analyze, the real world examples and find the right examples to fit. There was still a lot of thinking to be done, but it was such high quality thinking. And I know at times I was like, come on, Laura, stop diverging. It's time to converge. And I was kind of trying to move things along. But one of the big insights for me was, the value, like how much better the quality of the thinking and the cut through of simplification, and really working to simplify things, and the richness that comes with simplifying, that really allowed us to create something so practical and so valuable. So I guess it's around partly the simplification and the fact you can't just lift something directly and keep talking about it in the way you already do or have been, in a way that people aren't actually picking it up and applying it. So I'm just going to kind of hand the baton over to you there, Laura. And I know you'll have a different insight, but I think that was really interesting for me, and the quality of the thinking. And when people pick up the book and read it, it might look simple, some of it, and it might feel intuitively obvious, but it hasn't been common practice. That whole thing around common sense not being common practice, and the insights around why, if this stuff just feels like so clear, and so relevant, why do people not do it? So it's grappling with that insight as well.
Yeah, and I think for me, the ability to we had our goal. Kirsty, I don't want you to think that we just started off with a blank sheet of paper. We had a goal that we needed to come to a principles-based approach to learning and development in order to be able to deliver better business value, because our lives have been so cluttered with tools and technologies and choices, and that cognitive overload in our profession is massive. And so we had a goal, but that simplification process needed to be one of constant refining, and also showed the aha moment, showed us how our own agency. People say, oh, Laura, Michelle, you've been doing this for so long, we see you as experts, but our own agency was so vital in this process. Does this work? This critical thinking in action, our weekly calls were constantly, well, does this work? And it's not feeling right. And it's that wisdom, that insight, that tacit knowledge that we were trying to draw out, that was appearing in ways which were more like it's friction in the process. You know, this goal, why weren't we able to get to this goal? And the more we struggled with the friction, the more it became more obvious. And then it was just embarrassing, Kirsty, because when you come up with this tuning in, responding, improving principles, and then it was a struggle of, is this too easy? But then we thought, no, this is about simplification. It's not about reducing what we do into small boxes. This is about how we continually move and work. So that aha moment of the insights for me were actually allowing our own agency and our own experience to come through in our critical thinking was a really vital element of this work, and hopefully others can go on that journey where, yes, they can start with a simple framework, but it will get deeper and richer. And the more you go into this, the deeper and the richer it becomes. And we feel as though we've only just begun. Like it's becoming, it's giving us a way of looking at the world. Everywhere we look now is a lens that's allowing us to make sense of the world and make judgments in the world that we would not have made at the beginning of the book, I think.
And you both mentioned this idea that, you know, it's not the case that you have to have something really complicated in order for it to be smart, right? You can have, often when you can find that simple idea, it means you've worked so hard to hone it down to try and make it something that people can hopefully remember and stick to and do. But you mentioned this idea that perhaps it might seem obvious, you know, when you read it, because it's something that you go, oh yeah, of course I should be doing that. But why aren't people doing it already? So Michelle, earlier you talked a bit about you know, some of the previous or current practices that perhaps aren't helping L&D now provide value. What are the kind of blind spots, do you think, that sit with L&D teams that perhaps are preventing them from seeing their own way forward? You know, did you find any of that in your research?
Lots of it. And one of the key pieces is being trapped in our own expertise and being trapped by past successes and not being able to let go of those approaches and open up to new possibilities. And there's a section of the book where we talk about mindset and thinking habits. So it's often our own thinking habits that get in our way, particularly feeling like we have to show up as the expert and provide answers and solutions, rather than kind of showing up with more curiosity and exploring more, feeling like we as the L&D people need to provide the solution. We need to create the change rather than create environments where others potentially can succeed, or where we partner with others and support others to succeed. So I think that's one of the blind spots, is thinking that we have to be the ones to lead change. And it's kind of that expertise trap, which I think, Laura, that was something you explored in one of your past research reports, maybe eight or 9 years ago. And this idea of mindset and how the way we see our role, the way we approach risk and innovation, the way we see our relationship with others, all of these things can create blind spots that can limit us. And we unpack that quite a lot in the book. And that's kind of been a new area of thinking as well, Laura, and a newer area of research. We interviewed a lot of L&D leaders around mindset, around the way they think about themselves, their role, around what it takes to succeed, you know, and sort of unpack that into this series of thinking habits.
It's interesting you said that, you know, you can get hooked on past successes, and I wanted to do that, right, around successes, because I'm holding my fingers up and doing kind of speech marks. But so yeah, because it's solutioneering, it's kind of they're not necessarily successes, are they? Because they're not necessarily providing deep value, but it's that it can sometimes be the shallow value of well, I provided content and look at all the people that did it. And now we're on the next project. You know, that kind of the doing over thinking perhaps is, you know,
talk a lot about grounding our work in workplace realities and an existing culture, like really looking at fit with the organisation, and alignment around not only objectives but culture, the workplace context, and so on. And hence the need for that tuning in and the piece of work around tuning in. And often, and this isn't just an L&D blind spot, we're humans, right? We have this bias to action. We want to fix things. We want to provide a solution. And if we rush to action too quickly and we're not spending enough time doing this continuous tuning in, we fail to ground our work in the culture, in the workplace realities, and partner with others and the work that others are doing.
And you mentioned there that obviously you spoke with a lot of L&D leaders and practitioners. What you know, and you talked about that kind of mindset they might have as you talk to them. You know, what kind of represents the right kind of mindset? You know, what stories did you draw out from people, or examples did you draw out that you thought they've got it and this is what it looks like? Laura, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that we've been thinking about for a while since COVID, actually, because we were spotting through some podcasts that Michelle was doing, and she invited myself and Shannon Tipton to kind of co-host a podcast right in smack bang in the middle of COVID, where no one knew what they were doing. And we were interviewing people. And it struck me as I was listening to those interviews that it was the attitude of the people who were surviving, not just surviving, but thriving in that change period, was very, very significant. And that's one of the things that we wanted to dig into. And the attitude that we've seen is comes down to that courage, but we're a little bit more specific about being bold. It's not just brassy bold, thinking, I'm a courageous person. I'm going to come in here all guns blazing. Let's do AI. Let's do gamification. Let's do this. Let's do, so I'm a maverick. I'm gonna shake things up and break them and all of that kind of thing. No, it was smart bold. And smart bold we saw in during COVID, and then in the 40 additional interviews that we did for this book, is all about it's like an internal inner compass. We talk about the inner compass. It's not just, you said, north facing. Business first. Let's think about how we're here to support the business, the goals of the business, not the learning goals that we have. That's obviously clear, but it's not just about it being a north facing. How do we keep pointing north, a magnetic north, business first? Because I think that's been a danger for us. And in fact, it's how we identified our navigation metaphor. Is I used AI and I said, is there any other compass out there that isn't always only pointing business first, but actually has got different directions? And that's when we found the star compass that the navigation technique of the Polynesians used. It's how all of these things line up together in the constellations and where we are in position to that. So business first is one point of that compass B. The other compass area is being open-minded. Being open-minded, letting go, being open-minded to what other people are doing. Michelle's already hinted at all the ways we can be open-minded. L, leading and learning, experimenting, trying things out, being willing to actually learn ourselves by doing something new. And D, being deliberate, that balance to leading and learning. Are we evidence informed? Are we leaning into what we know of our organization, what we know about the science of learning? Deliberate, risk aware, not just risk scared. And so that's bold, that's smart bold for us. And that's the mindset that we saw in the interviews that we did, and that we've seen in high performing leaders and aspiring leaders really throughout our practice when we apply that, looking backwards.
Great, thanks. And I think both of you have mentioned the try approach as you've been talking to me today as well, which is something which you talk about in your book. Laura, can you help explain what that is? Because I think, from my understanding, those that kind of embody the kind of try approach seem to be have more chance of making positive headway and value in their organisation. So bring it to life for us, if you will.
Yeah, the try approach. Well, I'll take one element of it, Michelle, and you can come in and take another. The try approach is, we talked about it, it's a continuing approach. So it's tuning in, that continual every day. What are the things that we are just noticing in our world of work? So yes, that encompasses things like the way that we understand what's important to the business, what's important to teams, what our performance objectives are, tuning into what the work is, the job is, the tasks are, to understand how we might be able to support that. But it's also tuning in to where the individuals are at in our organization as well, their career aspirations, what motivates them, their emotional connection to what we're trying to do, and that bigger picture. But it's also about grounding ourselves in the culture and the reality of today's organization in order to make a shift. It's not to just be suppressed by it, but if you can't make change happen unless you're part of what's going on there. So understanding fully what is going on in teams, in culture, rather than saying, oh, I want everything to be a learning culture, and then being disappointed because no one wants to follow us. It's about being part of the organization, and do that. We need to be continually tuning in. But then we need to be in a position of being able to be continually understanding how we are responding. That's us as a professional, that we turn up at work. And there are elements of responding. It's not just about content generation, but how our position of response, our evidence-informed position, our digital curiosity, our ability to be able to apply learning science. It's our professionalism that really influences our responding in any one situation. Michelle, do you want to kind of pick up the baton on the responding and then how it links into improving?
Absolutely. So coming from a basis of having tuned in properly to know what it is we're responding to, bringing, as Laura says, our evidence-based approaches based on our professional body of knowledge, based on digital curiosity and our understanding of technology, and choosing solutions, shaping solutions that enable people not just to learn, but to perform. And figuring out what is the right solution that's going to really be helpful to people, to support them to build knowledge, to build skills, to make behavior change. And in the process of that, looking at the environment and who else do we need to engage to support them. We know, for instance, that manager engagement is critical. So how do we engage managers? Are there other influencers who can continue to support people to make the kind of changes that we're endeavouring to create in their environment, so that they are able to, to shift. So that's responding in effect. And then we move on to improving. We get very hung up sometimes in learning and development. We talk about demonstrating our value. But the angle that we've seen work and what the evidence suggests is if we approach it from the perspective of we are continuously seeking to improve the value, the solutions, the fit with the context that people are in, with shifting business goals and so on. And Laura, do you want to just pick up to round that out on kind of the three key aspects of improving?
Yeah, with improving, what we're looking at here is just the ability to be able to be, of course, measuring the right things, but measuring with the right intent, which is the critical thing. It's about where we connect and communicate within our environment, because this is a systemic approach. This is a holistic approach. How we tune in also helps us to improve. Tuning in also helps us on improving, because we're setting goals, and our improving helps us to continue to adjust our goals and adjust our route to a success, as we talked about earlier. So this improving concept is about being able to be confident with data, be confident with measuring the right thing, be confident in communicating the right thing, and confident in adjusting our own canoe, if you like, as we get this data coming in on a day by day, month by month, year by year basis, and be willing to shift the plan that we had at the beginning according to the environment that we see ourselves in today. And that's how we think people are really going to be able to work out how to navigate. They're going to need some scaffolding if we're new in this field. Our models, we've talked before about models can be overwhelming, but also some models can be really good at helping us scaffold some of these principles in our lives by following a particular model. Or a group of models might help us build these in, but we're not restricted to the models. The models are building confidence in the principles so that we can go out and we can do something new and fresh if our organization needs it. And we had plenty are really interesting examples. The lovely thing about Michelle and I being on the other side of each side of the world is the fact that our examples have come from literally around the globe, from all kinds of sectors, from people who are new in role in charities through people who've been in role in major big American banks for the last 30 or 40 years. And, and these principles, you can see them emerging in the aspiring leaders, and you can see that way that they have created deep roots in the really smart, adjustable, and agile business leaders that are out there at the moment.
And I know a lot of what you're talking about is about you need to find your own way, right? There's models, but it's really about what your principles are so you can adapt and find with other people in your organization the right continually changing routes forward, But if, as an, to L&D leaders out there, Michelle, are there some practical actions that, if they were saying, but please, where do I start? Or what should I do tomorrow that I'm not doing today? What would you call out?
I would call out a key tool that we have been working with and using with different groups over the last few years, and we set it up in the book. And it's the idea of having a field notebook. And a field notebook is something that you simply use. It could be digital, could be paper, but to really start making observations. What am I seeing? What am I noticing? What am I trying? How did something that I put out there work or not work? So it's a place to start deliberately noticing patterns and insights, and it helps you with your tuning into the organisation. It also helps you keep track of little experiments you might be trying. So this little pattern, of just short entries, on a daily basis. What have I noticed? Over time, you build up your ability to notice more and to see patterns and gain insights and reflect on your own experiences. We first came up with the idea from one of the podcasts we did together during COVID. And a shout out to Danny Johnson, who's now with Red Thread Research. She talked about keeping a lab notebook. And then we kind of played with that idea more and looked at people like Charles Darwin and his field notebooks, and how does using a field notebook sharpen your powers of observation, sharpen your insights, allow you to sense make more effectively. So I would say just start a field notebook.
Nice. Laura, anything to add on that before I move on to our wrap-up questions?
I think the key thing is to learn from other people, but don't feel that you have to copy what other people are doing. So our book is full of stories and case studies and links to podcasts and all kinds of different things. But it's not about feeling bad because you can't reach the goals of everyone else. It's about setting good goals for yourself and learning from their experience and applying it in your unique situation. I think that's the critical element that I would say that we need to do. It's a mindset thing, that I have got that agency to be able to make a difference for me rather than needing to copy somebody else.
It's kind of the continual reflective practice that you'd hope that L&D practitioners were bringing out in others, right? We are not always great at, so one of my old bosses used to say, eating our own dog food. But, ideally, go on.
Our own champagne. Drinking our own champagne, Kirsty.
That's nicer. Unfortunately, the dog food one is really memorable, and I haven't shifted it for 20 years. It's stuck in my head because it's so disgusting. But continual reflective practice, be working very openly, kind of out loud with other people, collaborative practice. These are all ways in which we say people learn effectively, right? And a lot of what I'm hearing is that you're saying apply that to yourself and see the work that you're doing as a continual learning and growth practice as you move forward. That's what is striking me. So if I gave you both, you can have one each, a magic wand that you could do anything with in the world of L&D. It could be to invent something, it could be to change practices, you can do whatever you want. What would you each do with a magic wand? So Laura, do you want to go first this time with this one?
I think I'll pick up on what you said, Kirsty, there. It will be our organization's ability to co-create value. Creating good business value through learning isn't the responsibility of just an L&D team. it is an opportunity to co-create value, but L&D brings a really fabulous set of principles to that process, a unique team member. And so the magic wand for me will just allow the whole organization to recognize how we can work better together to achieve a common goal. That would be, get the scales moved from people's eyes, the silos moved from their office buildings and their structures, to say, actually, we can do so much more together if we roll our sleeves up and apply all of our expertise in new ways of co-creating value.
Nice, I like it. Michelle, what would you do with your wand?
I would give L&D professionals the permission and confidence they need to have conversations they wish they could have, that they shy away from, or they feel they don't have the permission to undertake, or that the door's going to be closed in their face. So I give them that permission and the confidence to try new approaches. I give them agency.
Nice. Okay, that's really great. Thank you very much. There's lots of scales being shed in both of your answers. And if you could call out, I guess, one thing that you'd love L&D leaders to leave behind and just move on from, if you gave a quick answer to summarize, then what would you both say to that one? So Michelle, do you want to come in on that one?
Yeah, I guess it goes with my last one, the belief that you need a seat at the table to have influence. I wish we'd just stop using that word seat at the table. We all have the capacity to lead, to create change, to drive business value, no matter where we are in the L&D team or the organisation.
Brilliant. Laura?
I think it would be they need to leave behind fear of exposure. I think the seasoned L&D leaders in that we talk about too, they've got to a certain point, they've got to kind of protect their reputation. If you can leave that behind, then they'll be much more open to be able to lead into new places that they've not been before, let alone their team. And the same with aspiring leaders, that fear of exposure of like, maybe I don't know enough. You know something, you can see things, you can observe things, you have a voice, you have agency. So we could just let go of that fear of exposure. Then I think as a whole teams of learning and development leaders, we can really make an impact on the world.
Brilliant. The Grand Awakening. Well, listeners can find out more by, of course, going to read your book. And I think you've got some conversations coming up soon, have you, where you're talking about some of the ideas? Is that right?
Absolutely. Michelle and I have been continuing our conversation. It's sparked so many questions that we wanted to continue having the excuse basically to keep working together and to keep learning together. So we're going to be starting a series of podcast conversations under the Learning Change Makers banners, because effectively that's what we all are. And obviously we would love people to get involved with that. That'll be coming out soonish after the book.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, we can put links into that podcast and, of course, your book in our write-up when we put the podcast up on our website. So I'm going to say a massive thank you for both of you for joining Learning at Large today. I'm full of intrigue and curiosity, and feel like I've got an awakening bubbling up in myself to go and find out more from your book myself. So hopefully the magic wand is working on me, and I'm sure it has on our listeners. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kirsty.